have Vikram Verma. Good evening, everyone. We're very delighted to have Vikram Verma talking with Kanchan Dwivedi of TiE Bangalore. And we're really looking forward to an exciting session. Now, let me share a little bit about what we're doing in the FinTech Special Interest Group. We had a soft launch on 28th of September. And our agenda over the next few months is to anchor a series of events and actions. The first one of these would be probably inspirational talks, but which are also very practical and helpful for the FinTech community, like the one that we'll be having today with Vikram. We will then be having at least a monthly or every 4 to 6 weeks regulatory roundup. And the first of these is scheduled for 23rd of November. While we'll have a scan of the regulatory landscape, we will also be touching on a little bit of a deep dive into the lending area. How does it affect banking? How does it affect the fintechs? How does it affect NBFCs? So those of you involved with lending will find value from that conversation. After that, we hope to have a session on fintech and blockchains. This will be a resource from outside of India, but we will also try and bring you 2 of the startups on the blockchain fintech world, which you will find very interesting, hopefully. What we hope to do in the technology space is blockchains, cryptocurrencies, metaverse. What that'll tell us is what are some of the technologies which are going to be driving this space. The larger context for us is if by the end of this decade, we expect fintechs to be about $1 trillion in assets under management, what are we doing towards driving that agenda? It's important for us to be actively engaged. It's important for us to shape the world as we go forward. So with that, we are actually partnering with Karnataka Digital Economy Mission. Fantastic partners. Their aspiration is 300 billion of the 1.3 trillion digital economy to be driven out of Karnataka. We hope to be partnering with them with an Elevate program, which is getting startups funded as they go through the pitch process. Hopefully, we'll be able to announce the details of that in the near future. We will also be starting off with the monthly pitch day, and we'll come back to you in another couple of months, which will be probably most likely January, February, when we will have that going as well. What we would request of you is to share with us what else you'd like to hear, because the next regulatory conversation, for example, we'll try and touch on the digital currency. We'll touch on anything to do with crypto and some of the thinking around blockchains and what people are doing there. But there could be other topics that we are not right now considering. So let us know. We will be sending out at the end of this, after this event, some feedback requests on how we can shape this community to be really valuable to you. So with that, I hand it over to Kanchan. Looking forward to a really exciting session today. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Sandhya, and welcome to all to the TiE Bangalore FinTech Committee session today. I'm Kanchan Dwivedi, the founder of Loan Genie, which is a lending fintech. I'm also happy to share with all of you that we recently got selected. We were the top 15 entries across the world for the Financial Alliance for Women Hackathon. So, I'm always happy to contribute to the ecosystem. And, this is one of the ways I'm looking forward to engaging with TiE Bangalore. I'm really thankful to Madan Padiki for this opportunity, for his vision to think of various special interest groups like agri-tech, fintech, edtech, and so on and so forth. Also thankful to Sandhya for giving us a free rein to creatively think of various sessions which are coming up. And the aim of all these sessions, what I've seen is generally, the more you give to TiE, the more TiE gives back to you. So I've got my mentors like Rajaswa from TiE. And here's a disclaimer, at the beginning of the session that Vikram is also, has been kindly advising me on Loan Genie. So But other than that, Vikram also, coming to the session, the topic today, and the speaker today, Vikram also happens to have extensive experience of having worked in companies like Yahoo. He's also been a co-founder of a lending fintech. It was mostly focusing on business lending, and it was called Funds Tiger. So he's got his hands dirty working in early stage startups, and now after several transitions, now he finds himself at UB, which is the fastest growing unicorn, and he holds a senior vice president of engineering position at UB. He's a tech leader, and we are absolutely delighted to have Vikram here today. And we're going to be talking about what are the secrets to building a scalable and customer-centric tech. And so being a founder and also from a non-tech background, I actually am very, very curious as to how do you even accomplish all these things? And let's say taking the example of UB, how do you scale so quickly? In the case of UB, they have scaled over a period of a year and a half, and they are 1 billion plus in valuation today, with 6x of their revenues, leading to a 3x in their valuation. So because of this, so this is a great time to be having Vikram, and knowing from him what are the secrets that basically the unicorns apply so that they can scale quickly, and they can garner a large share of the market. So I was also looking at the piece about scalable architecture. So we know that it is the ability basically of the system to cope and to perform optimally under an expanding workload. And we have the live examples of scalable architecture with the example of UPI, which is recently in all of 2022, it's clocked close to $1 trillion in terms of transaction volume. And this is the first time this has happened, in the calendar year since UPI started in 2016. So was very curious to know, about, how do you go about scaling your team? How do you go about looking at the product, the architecture at different stages of the startup? And so I'll invite Vikram over to the discussion to kick off the discussion with this particular question.
All right. Thanks a lot, Kanchan. And first of all, thanks a lot, Sandhya, as well. I think, and the whole TIE team for giving me the opportunity. And thanks, Kanchan, for the kind words. So yeah, we'll deep dive immediately into the question that you asked. So I think there are many parts, right? I think there has been, there is no one single answer or the single approach that works for everything. For example, the approaches that I took when I was trying to scale Funds Tiger was very different from the stage that we or the approaches that we take today at UB. And within UB as well, I think our approach has evolved over this period of like 1.5 years ago when I joined, we did not even have a Series A round. Today we are a unicorn within a year and so on, and then we are rapidly growing, right? So the approaches also have to change, right? So and as you rightly said, right, a lot of things have to change. Our approach towards product, our approach towards how we build platform components and hence enable our architecture to be able to scale that rapidly. How do we scale our team? Like we have grown from including inorganic expansion through acquisitions, we have grown I think almost 10x in terms of our employees, right? So it also requires how do you grow, and we are in more locations than we were there. We are even present internationally today in Dubai. And so in terms of office spaces and everything, right, all of these become a very interesting way to look at how you scale. And I've had the privilege to be at UB to see some of these things and also instrument some of these things, right? Specifically to the point that you make about architecture, I think there are many aspects. Since this was a core topic, I'll spend a bit more time, and do feel free to interrupt in case we're running short of time and this is taking a longer thing. But this is the core topic, so I just thought that okay, I'll spend a few minutes more on this, right? So particularly when you look at architecture, right, I think that is one thing. I'll give the disclaimer, right? So again, the disclaimer is that not everything is required to do at the earliest stage, right? But at the stage where we are, I'll give an answer right now. And then at the stage when an early stage startup would be, or a pre-series A startup would be, I think some of these things you will have to take trade-offs and apply as per your context, right? But some of the principles that we look at today, right? Like, so one of the things from a product perspective is, right, that like, first of all, we align very clearly with our, like before we even go to the architecture, it's like most thing aligning with the vision and right, what exactly we are trying to achieve as a team, as a, not just as an engineering team, but as an overall, as a team UB, right? And what exactly is the goal that we have. We all align through OKRs and company targets, and then we align towards that vision, right? So whether it's product, technology, business, data teams, all of those come together and take our yearly goals, and then we also review them quarterly and so on, right? So that helps a lot in both aligning for an yearly goal, as well as we go ahead and try to make sure that we review at them every quarter and do a deep dive into them and look at things that probably require a course correction and so on. So that sets up as a base of that, right? After that, we also try to look at like what are the things that how do we achieve those goals, right? So one of the key things, which is I think everybody's familiar, things are already probably demystified. We also try to follow the agile model while we look at some of the quarterly targets and so on. We essentially, the idea is to break down our like higher level stories or epics into smaller stories and make sure that we are iteratively building things, we are incrementally building things. We are trying to figure out figure out to how to do fail fast. Now fail fast, again, I will give context in between from fintech world wherever possible. Now again, we are not like a social media where we can be eventually consistent or and handle higher transaction failures and so on. Being in fintech comes with more responsibility towards various data concerns, privacy, as well as security and the accuracy, right? So fail fast is in that context, that what are there are certain things that would be sacrosanct for you being as part of a fintech startup, but there are things that you could still like figure that out, right? So that would be the generic approach, right? Going further deeper, like I think in pure tech architecture, there are those what we call as non-functional requirements. So you want to look at definitely high availability, right? So before I go into some of these things, or say performance or scaling, right? But before I go into them, I think just want to take a step back and see and set the context for this as well, right? So essentially, why would even customers come to you, right? Like customers want to come because you are solving hopefully their some core problem. You are solving it more efficiently than what are the means available. You are solving probably more efficiently also by looking at in terms of turnaround time, or you are giving them more choices, and there is a reason for them. They find it engaging, and then you are able to do it extremely fast, right? So you are essentially helping their business, right? And to enable that, you need certain things, right? So now availability, right? So if the customers are relying upon the system, right? So I will tie up that with the business need. Then you need a highly available system, right? So today, as UB is works on a multi-tenant cloud, and we have a lot of large banks, NBFCs who integrate with us, partner with us, depend on us, as well as fintechs for our co-lending platform, right? So all of them depend on our systems being available, right? So that is one of the core things that will be there, right? For that, like you will, while we are on cloud and inherently rely upon the availability of AWS infrastructure, but you need to look at other ways, and I'll touch upon it from a different aspect later in the conversation. But you would look at various things, and then today we look at very high level of availability, and we measure by like what is our mean time to say diagnose an issue, or mean time to recover on an issue. What is our say disaster recovery plan? What is our business continuity plan? And make sure that our architecture aligns to enable that, right? So that being one of the core things, right? Moving on to say things like performance, right? Like people, so today we know that, right, a lot of any product, right, and this is not specific for fintech, but it's very applicable to fintech as well, is that that if you are doing certain transactions and say a transaction fail, you will not have a great experience, right? Or it takes a long time to get to say Kanchan mentioned earlier UPI, right? I mean, UPI in terms of apps has changed a lot of hands, right? So today PhonePe is the market leader, Google Pay is second, and people like Paytm and all are still catching up, and there are many other players, right? But essentially, it's the ease of use, it's the latency and performance that enables them to get market rate, because essentially all of them are solving the same use case, right? So we very actively look at our like technical metrics, like what is our API response time, what is our 95% TP90, what is our TP50. Essentially, these are times for how many 95% of the requests take, what is the mean time to respond, right? So all of those things, and there are many other things. I'm just taking a few examples, right? Then, of course, we need to look at scale, right? How do we look at the scale aspects for some of these things, right? Now, scale can mean multiple things. One of the things, again, by virtue of using AWS and auto scaling and horizontally scalable infrastructure, we need to do that. But we also need to figure out, we leverage that, but we also need to figure out how do we take care of peak loads? How do we do caching for latency? How do we make sure that we design most of our things as async when you want to handle large throughput or want to quickly return at least some context to the user while doing background processing? We try to make sure that a lot of our like services are stateless, and also trying to move away from monolithic services to microservices now. So again, here I will take a step back, right? So at the initial stage of a startup, you may want to go ahead with like a monolithic service or something, right? Because that's fine. You are in early stage, you are doing your PMF, you are quickly iterating. But as you grow, right, you realize that, okay, now your scale is more customers depend. There are more customers depending on you. Your throughput is higher, so you need to change, right? So there is nothing wrong with going with a particular approach to begin with, because in order to fail fast, you may want to do and iterate fast. You need to look at simpler solutions. But later on, as the complexity, the demands from your systems increases, you need to tackle and change re-architect your system to meet those needs, right? Then there are certain other aspects, right? In order to make sure that you are doing that, there is something called observability. There are a lot of application performance management software, and essentially the idea of self-healing systems, right? So how do you figure that out, that you are monitoring everything? Basically, the idea goes that you instrument everything in your code, send all these metrics to various tools. We use tools like New Relic and so on, and we use patterns, say like circuit breaker and so on, to make sure that things are we are monitoring them, and then we are trying to figure out how to go around with the self-healing systems, right? Again, like security and compliance is extremely critical for every system, but being for any fintech startup, that becomes a bit even more relevant, right? So security, compliance, and then I just touched upon the observability and the performance management part, right? You would also so these are the things, some of these core architecture principles that you will look at. But in order to enable that, you will also need to look at certain other things, right? So for example, how for us today, it is important that we need to look at, right? We are looking at that today. While everything is on AWS, today we want to look at that, hey, how do we become more cloud neutral or portable, right? So that we are not dependent on a particular thing as well, right? So there might be business reasons, there are tech reasons, and a lot of companies, like, for example, Netflix totally runs on Amazon. But for us, it might become more important to do that, right? Again, it is not necessary for everyone to look at that. But at certain stage, you may reach that stage where in your growth journey, that you may think that is a call that we need to take, right? So something that might be relevant, right? Then I think one of the things that becomes very relevant for us, for you to figure out and continuously add value to your customer, is having a very good data strategy. And that is critical for you in today's world, to have ML models or having an AI strategy and so on, right? So we today have a data catalog systems, we have a data lake on top of which we build our own data marts, and we have like a real-time and near-time and batch processing, all type of analytics available, both for us internally, for our teams, our engineering teams, our product teams, our business teams, as well as some of those things are exposed to the customers through our product, through our SaaS offering, right? And finally, I would say that apart from that, right, I would say that, like, in order to reach all these things, you will also need to make sure that your software development process, your automations, your CI/CD pipelines, your unit tests, integration tests, performance tests, and all of those things are there, right? So basically DevOps, QA, and how you are looking at that, right? So slightly long answer, but wanted to cover all the core pieces of how we look at architecture today at UB. And I think in the journey of any startup, some of these things might become very relevant for everyone, right? So I'll take a pause here, and if there are any follow-ups or whatever, I'm happy to answer that.
Yeah, Vikram, I think that was a very comprehensive answer. which touched upon the critical aspect of the scalable architecture. How do you go about ensuring that that is available in your organization, so that you can cater to the times when there's a like a peak traffic coming in versus there are times when you don't require that much of infrastructure around you. So how do you basically scale up or down depending on the requirement, the data coming in, security? Yeah, so amazing. You've touched upon all the critical parts. I was also thinking of your particular extensive experience as a co-founder of FinTech, as an early stage co-founder, as well as a CTO who was bringing up this product from scratch to to a stage today where you're actually leading teams, you're building exciting products, and taking UB to new levels. So wanted to understand from your perspective that as you start with a let's say an MVP or at a early stage, typically the temptation is to have all the product features into that particular product. So like how would you advise a startup founder or a CTO or engineering leader to basically look at incorporating certain features but leaving some others aside? So how do you do that filtering part?
So I think, there are multiple ways to look at that. Like, first of all, I think it's a very interesting question because there's a huge contrast in the journey that I have here compared to that, right? So at an early stage, there, my team itself is like 160 odd people, whereas there I was I was also doing DevOps, QA myself, and product, and we were a tech team of total 3 people, right? So first of all, that itself is a huge contrast in how you go about building. And how your approaches and so on, right, are going to be different. So there is a lot of things that we would like to leverage. Still, you would like to make some of the decisions that are there for long term, right? So even at that time, going back to say, we chose AWS, we chose Spring Boot as a tech stack, as a framework, and Java as a language, and so on, right? So things that you think that hopefully will be able to stand the test of the time, and then you will be able to scale, even if you were tend to re-architect from certain aspects, but they would work, right? So that is one way to look at. Purely in terms of the other question that you said, that in terms of product choices, features, and so on, right? I think I would definitely say that, and I think most startups do that anyway. Of course, you have to build a functional product, right? And so it's a minimal viable product, but it also be minimally functional product, right? So you have to complete the transaction cycles, right? So the way you look at it is that, okay, the functionality is covered, the bells and whistles can come in, and you keep building that incrementally, right? If you set up the right process, right? And in FinTech, we were doing 1 week releases, right? So every week we were deploying something, right? But we were always ensuring that, okay, whatever we are developing is something, is a complete feature, and it adds a certain value, right? So for example, so that's the approach I would take, right? Like, so for example, let's say you first launch a transaction, like a certain transaction, right? Somebody can take a loan, right? Now the nudge to take another loan, or recommendation to build a loan, or to suggest another loan, all of that can wait, right? So some of those things will come in, right? Because essentially the whole idea is, like, the holy grail is to get the product market fit, right? You don't want to over invest in your engineering and product. So you want to make sure that you have figured out some reason why customers how you'll acquire the customers in the first place. So that's your GTM strategy. And then why would they come and stick around? What exactly is the value that you are adding? And while they repeatedly come, right? So how do you acquire those customers? How do you make them activation? How do you do some transactions? How do you make sure that you are, I would say, coming repeatedly, or even better, right? They are able to refer other people, right? So until you get that PMF right, whatever time it can take, right? Depending on the thing, right? You need to make sure that you are not over investing on some of the things that will come in the future, right? That's the approach that I think which is a combined answer for both product and tech, right? But you also want to make sure that the choices that you are making are in line with the overall vision that you have, right? So that part remains, whether you are at a UB or at a startup, right? You don't want to do tangential thing, right? So for example, there are things that we did not want to do, and then customers wanted us to do, right? At FinTech. And then we took a call that, okay, we will not take that up, right? because that is not aligned with our vision, right? So that is also an important thing, right? So, but anyway, that's a separate note. But yeah, you will not always get by listening to all of your customers, you may not be able to get right to your vision. So it's important to stick to your vision. I think in early stages, sometimes the temptation is very high, particularly when a very heavy duty client that you think will add a lot of brand value to you. If you get that thing, then I think you may at times may struggle with that, right? So slightly went on a tangent, but yeah, I think these are the things to watch out, and this is how I would take an approach to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a stage where startup founders, especially at an early stage, they face a lot of options, and it can be very confusing. And what you mentioned is that stay true to your vision, and also maybe look at one golden feature that you can incorporate in your MVP, which is bare of all fancy features, but it has a few essential features that basically that would make your customer stick to you or retain. I think that's the way to go. So and in the course of your journey, I would also love to know what are the some of the things that you wish you could have done some other way, or now you realize in retrospective that that wouldn't have scaled up, and so some of the things that you really wish you could have done it in another manner would be some of the learnings I think a lot of us can take away from the session. So would love your take on that.
Definitely. I think there are more specific to my context. Those are the more learnings, because like when FundTiger was trying to essentially do a MSME lending marketplace, I think in between we thought of going to an NBFC model, and I think some of it is also related to timing. So there are many learnings. For example, we made a choice not to do FLDGs, the loss default guarantees, right? And nowadays, I think RBI is also trying to discourage people from to do that. But at that time, that's how most of the fintechs were scaling up, right? Now, that is something that we took a call not to do and stick to being a core marketplace. But maybe that is a call that we should have taken, and then that might have helped us grow, right? So, but some of the hindsight bias or hindsight, everything is 2020, so we don't know for sure. From a tech perspective and a product perspective, I think we took a lot of good calls, right? We did not scale up the team ever. The max tech team size was 3 people. We did not want to ever get into a situation where we have to hire and fire. You have to roll up your sleeves and write code to deploy, learn everything, whatever else. So I think we did all of those things right. We also built the product incrementally, right? So as I said earlier, right, agility is you can have one MVP, but you need to continuously iterate upon it very fast, right? So that is one thing that we were doing every week. We were deploying a release. So there was built out was very fast, right? We were also engaging with customers very fast and so on, right? So, and the type of lure, I think we also got, right? Certain banks wanted us to work with. I got invited by some of the large banks. We partnered with some of the large PSU banks in Bombay, Chennai, headquartered there. A bunch of them were PSUs. And they tried to, like, it so happened that we went in a slightly different direction, and then we got different focus. And that's the learning also I had, right? So eventually we course corrected and came back, but it wasted a bit of time by going into that direction, right? So maybe we should not have done that, right? Most of the learning I would say from FundTiger was that tech and product, the learning particularly for me, because while I did my IMB MBA course as well, but I remain core techie, right? So I focus, and my partner focus on the business side, but who also happens to be a good friend and batchmate of mine. But the core learning is that, see, your business value and propositions you need to solve for, right? So I think what essentially for FundTiger we did not get right is how do we continuously acquire customers at a very, I would say, in a way that they are profitable. So like profitable in the sense that they are not taking us deeper, right? Every transaction is not taking us in loss, right? So for example, connector strategy or any other strategies to acquire. For example, digital marketing doesn't work in lending for the B2C because there is adverse selection, right? So of course we tried, we burnt a few bit of money and then we quickly scaled back, right? But identifying the right strategy which continuously take to grow is something, right? So and it's a hard market. I don't see a lot of winners in this B2C space of B2B2C space of lending, right? Also, one more advice that I would say that do a few things and do them very well, right? So don't try to diversify too early into many things, right? At QB, while I run a product portfolio of 6 products, but we have already scaled to that level. So we have now the wherewithal to do that, right? But it is a risky strategy for a very early stage startup to try to do multiple things, right? I think doing like lesser things and doing them well is another thing that I would say that, right? We at FundTiger, we tended to quickly add more business units. So what we did was we started with MSME loans, we went into LAP loans, we went into home loans, and then and personal loans as well, because most of our banks wanted us to do that as well, right? When they tied up, they saw that, okay, there's a potential, but that may not have, that I don't think was a right strategy for us, right? It divided our focus rather than being very good at one niche, right? So those are some of the key learnings that at least I take, more on the product and business side and how to scale your company and make sure that you're there, than tech. Because I think on tech side, also you may say that I'm biased from the being the CTO co-founder, but I think like our product was decent from that stage. Of course, we could have done more, but I don't think we reached that stage to scale it better or to architect it better and so on.
Right. So yeah, Vikram, yeah, these are absolutely great insights on on not focusing on lot many things initially, because it's a better thing to find out your top, basically maybe top 3 priorities, or start focusing on a fewer things, because you have very few resources, and if you end up distributing them amongst many options, then basically they're not going to have the impact that you intended them to. So absolutely great insights there. So though you have mentioned about customers and not always listening to your customers, but I would also now look at maybe that was a B2B scenario, but I would also look at a B2C scenario today, where basically customer is in the driver's seat. So research continues to show that the impact that the customer experience has on the bottom line. And as we're going in, in 2022, customer centricity is more than just good business practice. It is the key to survival. So the concept of customer centricity is transforming the way we basically interact with tech. And customer experience is the new battlefront. And for winning, we would require a whole new level of dedication to customer-centric business models. So with that context, I wanted to also know from you, Vikram, what are the key things to focus on for building a customer-centric product?
Excellent question, and I think a good segue into this as well. I would just add one point. I think it's not only B2C, I think B2B customers as well are also in the driving seat, and with the large checks or whatever, like if you do a larger transaction and deal on a marketplace like say UB, given the average order value is higher, that becomes even more critical, right? So I think customers are B2B or B2C, both are in the driver's seat. But coming to our actual question of how do we focus upon customer centricity. So first I will talk a bit about how we grade internally in terms of how we culturally are aligned to do the values, right? So the way we have a small, very simple test to look at, right? Like first we look at customer, then we look at organization, that is we. Third, we look at the team, and fourth comes the individual, right? That's a very simple grade hierarchy that we have, right? And we all, like, and this comes directly from our CEO, Gaurav, we are all very aligned with that, right? So like, and if you look at like some of the people that at least I call like as a role model is Jeff Bezos. Gaurav also happens to share that. And some of the key things that we want to focus upon, right? Again, borrowing from Amazon philosophy, is that like focus on things that will always be there, right? Like for example, customer will never ask, it's our business, it's very important. It becomes like interest rate. Customer will never ask for a higher interest rate loan. So cost becomes an important. And customer will never ask for, hey, give me it after 3 months, right? They want it now, right? Right. If you so these are the two things, right? So in a way, if you look from engineering perspective, these are the invariant conditions. They are not going to change. If you can focus on that from your value perspective and from your product perspective, then these are the and continue to focus upon them, then you will not go wrong. I think so. So I think that is one, like at a high level, how we look at both the importance of customer. It's baked in our values and how we day-to-day operate on it, right? Now coming to like how a customer we interact with and make sure that they're happy, right? There are many angles to it, right? As you rightly said, the latency and performance and some of the things and the design, right? But I will first begin by design, right? The design itself has to be very simple, right? Today, customers, not only because your page doesn't load in time and that's an engineering issue or a performance issue, they will go away. But your design has to be very intuitive. It has to be very simple. It should do the job. It should not overcomplicate the job. So design has to be extremely simple, right? The core MVP or the functionality should be very easy to execute, right? So I can take a simple example, right? You can do UPI from many apps, right? There are multiple reasons why people, in my view, shifted to PhonePe. It was more reliable. It had less number of errors happening, right? Which is a customer experience, right? If you look at, say, Amazon Pay also has it, right? But it's embedded in that separate app. Now that's a strategy because dual app, super app, all of those things are there, which is fine. But it is not as easy to reach to a scan and pay from a UPI app of Amazon Pay versus a Phone Pay, right? Google Pay, I know, had the lead, but again, they had too many errors, too many things. And I'll add another personal example, right? There was a time Google Pay just stopped working for me, right? And this ties up to customer support. Now, Google Pay has a customer support thing. I personally raised that thing and I never heard back. And eventually it never worked. And the step it was failing was, it would just not validate the OTP. That's it, right? And I could not do anything. And I gave up Google Pay and shifted to PhonePe and have been there ever, right? So customer centricity, not only from how your product design, while Google Pay interface is also equally easy to use, right? But reliability from a customer experience, or if you look at let's say the customer support, all of them touch, right? So it's a function of all three: product, engineering, and design. All four, and finally support, right? How many, like by engineering, I'm including our quality and testing process as well. But how well you have thought through the use cases, how well it is designed, how simple it is to use, right? And how easy it is to get that transaction done. Because ultimately, why do customers want to do, like, let's say, they don't want to spend a lot of time on the transaction app, right? When I'm going to a local shop and I want to do a UPI transaction, I want to get quickly out of it, right? Or a customer who comes to us for a loan application and wants to get it loan, like, we should be able to figure out what is the way to solve it as quickly as possible. It could be through recommendation, it could be through automatically prefetch of information that we can get from bureau scores or their past history, whatever they may be, right? The fundamental principle remains same, right? So I think if you are not customer centric in your DNA, right, I think you will, like, any company will struggle, right? And all of these aspects are critical and all of them need to be paid attention, right? And sometimes you have to, like, you may not have a lot of tech built up to solve. In that case, you have to put, for example, operations people to support it, right? Let's say you don't have the tech to validate the documents uploaded for a particular loans thing, right? Because they are not in a standard format. They are government documents. They might be in, say, Kannada also, or whatever, like the legal documents that you need to validate, say, for a home loan, right? The Khata documents or whatever, right? Now, you may have to solve it differently. You may have to make sure that it goes in the queue of operations people who provide a faster turnaround, right? So as a business, you need to solve from all possible angles, right? So that's how I would look at it, right? So I hope that tries to cover. I did not want to go deep into this, but wanted to touch upon the various aspects because all of them are critical. And ultimately, if you don't solve for any of them, you leave a bad taste in the mouth of the customer. And even though if you acquire, you spend a lot of money from marketing or wherever means to acquire them. But if they are not happy, they will move away, right? And Indian customers are definitely, I think, even more unforgiving, right? And so I think I think you can see a lot of shifts, right? Even I can take another example of Paytm, right? It has seen a lot of shift of loss of those things, right? Some of it could be attributed to late arrival to UPI bandwagon, but irrespective of that, right? Various other reasons, I think ease of use or reliability and so on, the market has shifted, right? So I think it's very, very important to make sure that you're that is your core DNA and you are tied to that, right? And every day in your every decision that you take in the org is focusing on that, right?
Yeah, that is so nice to know that basically it's a very customer focused organization, and we all we all know about Amazon globally, how obsessed they are with their customer. So it's great to know that you hold Jeff as well as Gaurav holds him in high esteem. So, and absolutely, if you're looking at customer centricity, right from their organizations where their employees, maybe the developers are engaging with the customers in order to understand how it feels, not just ship the product out, but also, kind of have a feel. They're also internally the teams, let's say the operations team or the legal team, sometimes they can get in conflict because all basically the business wants to do is provide a customer focused experience, whereas the compliance will say no, this requires multiple steps, we need more data. And so there might be a conflict. So which is why I think it's a great idea for fintechs to have all of the key stakeholders like the compliance team or the developers team or the marketing team sit together and arrive at a solution, because as it is, you're going to otherwise revise that solution if in case it doesn't cater to any one of the stakeholders, so they won't buy in. And if they don't buy in, it won't be a success. So absolutely critical, I think, for a fintech founder, the engineering heads, to bring in all the key stakeholders into the decision-making process of arriving at a solution. So, and now that we have a very customer-centric, let's say, tech all around in the organization, leads to a lot of data. So this could be, we are talking about the business data, we are talking about the user data or IP related data, which is there in the organization. And so it is very critical for an organization, especially a fintech, to secure that data throughout the life cycle of the data, as well as the various platforms, the cloud platforms which are there, as well as the endpoints. And there are a lot of data breaches which are happening, which we keep hearing of at an alarming rate, and which puts the organization, its entire value chain, it puts the customers also at risk. So there are fines which are being imposed on organizations by the regulators, around violations of data protection and privacy. So in this particular scenario, Vikram, how would you advise the fintechs to take care of your security, take care of your data security?
Excellent question. I mean, while I covered briefly into the architectural principles, see, as a fintech, right? I mean, security and compliance is again almost becomes an invariant condition, right? You can't compromise them at all from day one as well. Because the other thing that you want, like the customers, to make sure is that like security directly goes for trust, right? If you lose the trust once and your reputation, then nothing is going to help you, right? It's very hard to forget data breaches and so on, right? If your passwords are leaked or something, right? So of course, this is something that even at FundStiger, like one of the things that I made sure that, okay, we are making sure that all the data, whether it at, so like we classify data at endpoints, data at rest, and data in motion, right? So data in motion, you have all those protocols at SSL, TLS that you have, right? Authorization, authentication, all of those things will take in place, right? But also for like data at rest, as you rightly say, right? Some of it is controlled purely by your by the access controls, right? So at UB, we are very particular that we make sure. But I think all fintechs are, right. The good thing is there are a lot of standards as per ISO, we are doing SOC 2 certification, all of those things exist, right? Those certifications help, right? We regularly do our vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, right? So VAPTs and so on, right? By external vendors, they get audited by external vendors, right? So being part of a compliant, like by RBI, and we have our CSPL as well, which is for our securities thing. So we are also compliant to SEBI and other things. So all of these compliances that we need to meet, I think that they enforce us at a larger stage. So, so the solutions are there, right? The short answer is all the solutions exist, right? You just need to make sure that that you apply for them, right? So none of these things are news for anyone. Everybody's aware, but the important thing is to start them from day one, right? One of the things that we do is we do also a lot of security testing as part of our automation pipeline, right? So we make sure that not only for our code, there are tools like that we use, DTrack, Brakeman, check marks, that they're all baked in, right? bake in our Jenkins pipeline, right? So some of them identify like the third party and open source libraries that we are using. Are there vulnerabilities there, right? And if there is some P1 issue or any known vulnerability, we don't release, right? It automatically blocks, right? Until we fix that issue, right? Also, we have very, very high SLAs on security issues, right? So within 2-3 hours, like they are P0s for everyone, right? Where compared to any other P0, which might be a functional issue, right? So we make sure that those are the top priority for the whole organization, and everybody will get notified on their Slack and then immediately act upon it, right? So because issues will happen, right? But no matter what you take, right? Because the world engineering in complexity is very high, right? You use a lot of open source software. There could be a bug. There are new vulnerabilities that can happen through. For example, even there was a time that Heartbleed. I was at Informatica and leading some security things. There was a Heartbleed bug that came in SSL, right, which was considered, and there was this downgrading of SSL protocol bugs that came in at that time, right? So all of those things are there. You might be using the best thing, but you still need to act very quickly to patch them up very quickly, right? And 0-day vulnerabilities and all can be like very, very harmful for your reputation, trust, and loss of your business if you are not able to handle them, right? So this is one area I would suggest that, like, even if you may not have, even if you have a monolith, right, that is okay, but it is important to make sure that you are solving for security and compliance from day zero, right? Particularly in fintech.
Right. Absolutely. I think very critical, I think, especially for fintechs, like you mentioned, and things, there are concepts like zero trust access, basically, which is to verify first and trust later. I think, and I think Mr. Narayan Murthy also said that in God we trust, rest all bring data. So, yeah, so with that actually was also, wanting to move into the culture aspect of it. So there's a wonderful quote by Simon Sinek, who has written a book called Start with Why. And he has said that customers will never love a company until the employees love it first. So, connecting that with the kind of growth that you'll be seeing, it's impossible for a startup to flourish, to scale up so fast, for people to coordinate unless they really believe that they're making something which is benefiting the community at large. And so which is why it brings me to the culture at UB. So tell us, what is exciting about the culture at UB?
I think you are absolutely right? For any startup to scale and continually grow, right? It's a very hard business, right? I think it's important to, it's like much harder to even remain there and to grow further and further from, say, unicorn to decacorn or even a 5 billion company is a much harder journey than so on, right? So you are right. So culture is one of the most important parts, right? I mean, if you look at like the amount of time the senior leadership right there from Gaurav and some of the other leaders, and I also in our org, we spend an inordinate amount of time on making sure that we are getting our culture right? And it is again at a day-to-day level in various things, right? And for that, we have codified some of the things, right? So one of the things that I touched upon, how we look at individual, the team, the org, and the customer, right? So that is one of the things that we make sure that is well imbibed, right? But we also have our own cultural values defined, right? I would love to briefly take this opportunity to briefly touch upon that, right? And then talk about, right? So one of the first things, right? Because and then this came up and I wanted to interject with an answer also because I missed it in the earlier thing. See, when you spoke about the conflict and the business may want certain things and product may want something and engineering may or QA may want something else, right? But the thing is that we all need to understand that we will only succeed, we will succeed together, right? So there are two values. One is that you are at a team, you have to be a team player, you need to get along with that, right? You need to align to the vision. But more importantly, you need to understand that you are what we call as infinite game. So basically you are here for the long term. So you need to always think of the long term, right? You may need to do trade-offs. I'm not saying that you will not have trade-offs, right? Whether it's engineering or a QA, sometimes you will need to take trade-off, right? Or even your product thing, what you really want, because the utopia doesn't exist, ideal situation is not there, you don't have the same amount of time, resources, all of those constraints you're always operating in some constraints, right? Even if you're a unicorn, right? Or even if you are a larger company with a lot of things, everyday constraints are there, right? So with that, I think that is one of the key things that we want to look at. And whenever it sorts of over the talisman that guides us, right? Okay, is this right for the long term or not, right? So that helps, right? to look at some of those decisions that we are. Then we also expect, say for example, um, drive an excellence mindset, right? I mean, I think it's important for a company at a fast growing pace that we ourselves are good role models and trying to excel in what we do. We expect the same from everyone, right? Because if we are not doing excellent in what we are going to do, our investors who are putting in faith in us by investing money, or our customers who are trusting us to solve for their business problems, none of them are going to be getting a A+ solution, right? So if we are not up there, right, then the output will also suffer, right? So I think that is another key thing that we look at, right? Then we take pride in what we build, right? So we take pride, we encourage people, we give them ownership, we empower them, and we celebrate our successes, right? So we make sure that people are what we are building, they understand what is the value of it, right? And they take pride in the product and from all aspects, right? Not only from just say product team, but in product engineering, everyone, that what we are delivering as value to the customer. So that is also an important thing. We have a very strong bias for action, which I think a lot of startups have. That is a core value, and there in Amazon principles also have. Because I think without that you can't succeed, right? You will go wrong on some decisions. It's important to take decisions though and move ahead. You can't be in analysis, paralysis, and so on, right? So we have a very, very strong bias for action. Again, the thing, again, I will quote Gaurav, what he usually advises us, right? The things that could have very huge impact, you need to do them slowly, right? But things that cannot have a very like a short-term thing, you can fail fast, right? So fail fast doesn't work everywhere, right? So wherever you think that fail fast can work, it's okay to take a faster decision. And if not, it doesn't work, you go back, you backtrack, you course correct, and it could be who to, are you hiring a right person, right? Those are the things that that you should not go wrong, right? And if something is not a culturally good fit, right, then how do you do that, right? How do you course correct that, right? So those are some of the important things that we need to look at. And finally, again, we all want to, I covered it earlier, but we, from a culture point of view, want to make sure that the other guiding principle or guardrail is that are we doing it right for the customer, right? So customer, team, thinking of our long term, doing it with an excellence mindset, and taking faster and quicker decisions, figuring out where to take, where you can afford to fail fast, and so on, right? So security is not an area that we would like to fail fast. We want to do a thorough job, right? Compliance is an area we don't want to pay hide and seek with regulator, right? We don't want to get there, right? So we want to make sure that we are actually, even when regulations may not exist, we want to take data privacy and other things very seriously, right? So for example, data at rest, we were encrypting everything all the time, even though when the regulation was not there, right? And even today, data privacy law, I think it went back and now it will come back in another form. But that is not guiding us, right? We are trying to do more than what is just the basic compliance, right? I think that is, so those are some of the values or some of the examples of how we want to look at the values to make sure that we are. I hope that answers the question. Happy to take any follow-up in case you were looking at something else as well.
Right. Vikram, I think those are wonderful values. I think that can inspire many of us on the call to basically take some of these values as our own as well. This commitment to excellence, and also fail fast is not the panacea for all the ills. It is selective. You see where you can apply fail fast, and there are other places where you go slow, like in hiring and in security and compliance, areas which require very thoughtful consideration. So absolutely, I think they're very valid values, and kudos to both you as well as Gaurav and the leadership at UB. So I would also request the audience to be ready with some of the questions you may have that we're going to go into after a little while. So would welcome your questions. And before I actually move into a question and answer with the audience, I'd like to do a quick quick fire round with you, Vikram, and so a series of questions, if you can just share your view, your response on that. So so we can start. Work from home or work from office?
I think hybrid. We are in hybrid. We do 4 days office, 1 day work from home. So I think that's working very well. Right.
Product centric or customer centric?
I think that's not or, that has to be both. So I'll have to apply the and operation. You have to focus on both.
Okay. That is interesting. Build versus off the shelf.
Again, contexts, right? I think so. I don't want to build cloud infra. There I want to go for AWS. But what is core USP? I would build.
Right.
But,
Basically, your
but today, in
secret
today's
sauce.
world, a lot of buy should work, right? Because a lot of buy which is not core. I think it's more goes to circle of competence, right? What is your core competency you want to focus upon? Right? What is not your core competency, you should be able to either outsource or buy.
Yeah, fabulous. You have to have your secret sauce, your moat, basically. Absolutely. Favorite blogs, tech blogs?
Many non-tech as well, but I think there are the SaaS blogs. There is FinTech Insider, A16Z, the the Wharton FinTech blog. There are quite a few, right? I think so. Quite a few blogs. Right?
Sure.
Non-tech as well, but yeah, I think Google Podcast. I have a very long list of podcast lists.
Yeah, I actually the A16Z and Wharton FinTech podcast, the podcast. I listen to the podcast, and these are my favorites as well. And favorite podcasts for technology and non-tech.
Non-tech, I like philosophy, so Philosophize This has been my flavor. So it's very interesting. There is some science blogs like Huberman podcast and so on. So they are very interesting. Neuroscience and so on. So behavioral economics related things. So big fan of certain books like I think Malcolm Gladwell's book, Adam Grant, Nassim Taleb. Farnham Street. Farnham Street is a good blog, I think.
Right. Mine as well. I think Farnham Street is a clear favorite. And favorite influencers?
Influencers, I don't know, but I could say Virat Kohli today, even though he lost the match.
Yeah.
No worries, guys. We will win it next time. I think our jinx is going on for ICC tournament. We'll win it. Disappointing day from that point. But otherwise, yeah, role model wise, I think I would say definitely Jeff Bezos.
Right. And then finally, badminton or cricket?
Watching cricket, but playing badminton.
Okay. Right. That's an interesting answer. Because I know you are, every weekend you are playing badminton. So I had to put that question in. So great. I would now request the audience to unmute themselves and ask any questions that you may have for Vikram.
There's a question I see on the chat. I can take that while others ask this question.
Yeah, maybe this is by Vinay. Vinay, are you there? And would you like to ask the question live?
Yeah. Hi, fantastic session, a lot of insights, right? So my question was, do you see more results in letting your through your product-led growth, or do you also follow the conventional sales teams and processes that help you generate more customers and sales for your business? Which one works?
See, there is no right answer again here. I think it varies from the context that you might be in or the industry that you might be in. But you may want to start with your sales-led growth and so on. You might need, for example, the area that we operate in. Today, we have sales-led growth as well as product-led growth, right? But if you want to scale non-linearly, eventually you will have to take to product-led growth, right? Because sales-led growth more is more likely to be linear growth, right? It is not possible for the same sales reps to do infinite amount of work, right? Whereas the product-led growth can help you grow exponentially, right? Of course, that is harder, easier said than done, because you need to get every product, not only just PMF, right? You need to continuously be able to improve your product and get the whole cycle right? So, but the answer is again a combination of both, right? And also, I would say that it applies in different contexts, right? Financial services, I think it's hard to crack without sales-led growth particularly if you are selling to banks, right? To begin with.
Right.
Once they've got a taste of your product, you might be able to switch them.
Right.
I hope
Makes
that.
sense. Thank you.
An excellent question, Vinay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Vinay, I've also been thinking about it. I think, obviously a mix of both, but also, first get the product right, and then, you look at scaling up your sales team and getting feedback, and then refining your product and, taking it up from there. So that's just a, baseline view of the question. So, and I don't think there are any more questions as of now. And we've also finished it up right at 6 o'clock. So great timing. Sandhya, would there be any questions from your end?
No, I just want to say it was one of the most engaging sessions. Fantastic success, Vikram. You and your team have really done a fantastic job. I think it makes us all proud to see how effective you guys have been. I think what I also liked is such a simple, easy, accessible way that you shared your experience and your journey. I'm sure many people, even those who haven't joined today, I know a lot of people are probably on YouTube watching this. They have benefited enormously from what you've shared. Sincere thanks from Ty for doing this with us. And Kanchan, really good to kind of share your mentor and someone who's kind of given you guidance, and you did a fabulous job in making this happen. And thanks to all the audience who joined us, and hopefully we'll have many more, and maybe Vikram, we may ask you to come back again, because it genuinely was fantastic.
Yeah, thank you, Sandhya. I think, the Vikram is a treasure trove of lovely information, experiences, and a whole lot of it, I think, which the ecosystem can benefit from. So we would definitely love to have you back again, Vikram.
Thanks a lot for having me here. It was my privilege. So definitely, thanks a lot. And I definitely hope that people find it useful, and would love to be contribute more to the community where and be part of more sessions. And thanks for everyone's time, like who participated today and asking interesting questions. And thanks a lot, Kanchan, to you and Sandhya again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vikram. Thank you, Sandhya, and the team at TiE Bangalore, Vinay and Sai, as well as the whole team at TiE Bangalore FinTech Committee. Thanks a lot for your support. And we look forward to interacting with the community on various fronts, including speakers, sponsorships, any kind of views or suggestions that you may have. Please get in touch with us, either me or the team, and we'll be happy to incorporate your ideas and suggestions. Thank you, team.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.